Chiefs Kingdom, welcome in to the AP Film Room. Back at it. Going to be talking about the NFL Draft tonight because, as you probably, if you joined us the last time, this Arrowhead Pride stream happened, live stream. We were at the NFL Draft talking about it, me and Caleb and Serta. Shout out Serta, our producer, always producing the show and the podcast. We were there breaking it down for you guys live, talking about all the picks and stuff, but now we've had some time to digest everything, right, fellas? We've had some time to kind of, get our takes kind of solidified, make sure we're not off base with our initial takes, because we're always, they're always off the cuff, and we gotta make sure we're not, overstepping a little bit. But anyway, I'm Ron Cobb Jr., lead analyst at the site. With me, as always, Caleb James at CJ Scoobs on Twitter, Nate Christensen at Nate CH32 on Twitter. Caleb, we'll start with you since you had the pleasure of joining me last time. Have you come down from the draft high yet? How you feeling?
I sometime like Sunday morning, like I did not want to get out of bed. I was tired all day. I'd lost my voice. It finally started coming back a little bit towards Tuesday or something, but that was just an incredible experience. I was glad to be able to be a part of something like that. The draft was interesting now that we were reacting to it live up there. They made some picks that at the time had me kind of scratching my head, not necessarily about the players, but at the spot they were getting the players at. But overall it was a great experience. A little bit of news yesterday, but I'm just looking forward to kind of getting in and breaking down these prospects.
And Nate, you were there too, just in the crowd, enjoying it.
Mhm.
Probably, doing a little less. Probably as much talking about the picks, just as much as we were honest. Let's be
Yeah.
honest. With all the people around you and stuff. So, how are you feeling about the draft now that we're a week away from it?
Yeah. So I went actually to the draft on Friday, and I was there kind of during the day hanging out, but like it was great weather on Friday until the draft came. Then it started sprinkling. Then the wind picked up. Because I saw on my phone it was only like 60, 65. So I was like, I just need a long sleeve shirt. I don't need much else. Bad idea. I was cold.
Yeah.
I sent you guys a message. I was like, I need the Chiefs to like trade up in the third as early as possible so I can get out of here because I was like freezing. But besides that, it was a ton of fun. It felt quick paced. It was easy to kind of hear and see everything. It was a ton of fun. There was a lot of great people around. It didn't feel super crowded. So besides the weather, it was fun. I was glad I was able to go, and it'll be something I remember for a really long time.
Yeah, no, you're right. We walked the experience before it started, and you could tell it was about to happen. It was about to start raining. So yeah, they did trade up though in the third round to get Wanye.
Yeah,
Didn't
two
they?
spots.
Oh wow. Okay. Well, hey, they saved you a little bit. They saved you a little bit.
Yeah.
Well, that's the thing, fellas, is we are going to start tonight not talking about the draft necessarily, although this has something to do with the draft, which I do want to get your guys' takes on, and that is the Chiefs signing veteran offensive tackle free agent Donovan Smith. He has been with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers for the last last year was his 9th year in the league. And he was on the open market. We've kind of talked about him as a possible, because they did cut him. He wasn't a free agent necessarily this year. They had to cut him in the offseason. And so he was kind of someone that we talked about earlier in the process of free agency as someone that they could maybe get as that left tackle, to start right away. But that's the thing is he's here now, and it does feel like he's going to start, right? We've seen a contract up to $9 million. It looks like we don't know the exact numbers yet, but the thing I want to kind of talk about here with him as I kind of let this roll. Actually, I do want to highlight that this is his first game of the season last year against Dallas. He actually went down with an injury, literally 23 snaps into this game. And so he kind of last year just started off with the elbow injury and then had a foot injury towards the end of the year that forced him to miss a couple games. And so he kind of had a rough year last year. And so there's going to be, and I'm going to show him, there's going to be some rough reps, and he's going to maybe look like someone that, maybe shouldn't be necessarily considered just a surefire starter or someone that we should feel necessarily super comfortable with some of these reps. But what you're going to see, what you're seeing right now, and I do need to back up and show this is I do think when he is as a run blocker out in space, he is someone that definitely can get on you. He moves pretty well, and he just can bully you a little bit. Obviously, you see right there. He can down block, obviously create penetration that way or create space that way. He gets a lot of movement right there on Micah Parsons. So he's a strong guy at the point of attack. In his pass setting, he's someone that really needs to get on the guy quickly, right? I think he's someone that definitely is not someone that is as comfortable kind of waiting on that pass rusher to get to him, which I'll show you. But he's someone that needs to get on him right away. And if he does, he has good grip strength. He has that kind of veteran, old man strength a little bit. He's only 30 years old, though. That's one thing I do want to make sure we don't. We need to stop talking about him like he's some old guy. He's not even 30 years old yet. He's turning 30 in about a month. What you're going to see here, too, is kind of some of that veteran savvy, too. He's kind of got some of that hand fighting. He was feeling good this game. I think his Bengals game was pretty good. This is kind of in the middle of the season between those injuries, maybe. You're going to kind of see, some of that kind of just, he knows what to do, right? He's been playing a while, and that's something you're not going to get with the rookies, which is something that is important, But, again, he just has good grip strength. You're going to see here, though, this is where it kind of maybe starts to – or no, this is where, you're going to see some of the pushing out of the kind of when guys kind of hit his inside shoulder. He can wash him out to the other side of the pocket. It's not perfect. It's not clean. But he does kind of have the hand strength to do that and kind of the mirroring skills, I would say. He can kind of mirror inside to an extent. Here's a pretty good one. Not necessarily mirroring inside, but just kind of taking him with his momentum and putting him in the ground. But here's where I do think you're going to maybe see some things, and these are still going to happen in his game. I don't want to say it's all to injury. He's just one of these guys that I really feel like just snap to snap needs to be like focused in, locked in on his technique. This is what I mean by not necessarily wanting to take a deep set and waiting for his guy to get to him. I just feel like when he does that, his hands get wide and he lunges. I mean, look at this lunge right here. I mean, that's very bad. And Houston just wrecks him here, and he's going to keep wrecking him. I'm going to show you. Kind of has a tendency to get his hands wide a lot of times too, and just kind of let Houston get right into his chest. And kind of just he's just not the stoutest guy, right? And that's where I mean, like, he really needs to lock in and focus in on his technique. Really like sink those hips and really like get on the guy early so he can use his grip strength. But the grip strength's not going to work if you already let the guy get 2-3 steps of momentum. You're going to see here he just had to start holding at some point, right? These last 2 reps were just him holding. He got away with it the first time. And that's where the elbow injury maybe comes in a little bit. Maybe he's just not as comfortable and kind of has to overcompensate with more holding. He was one of the more penalized offensive tackles in the NFL last year. But you're just going to keep seeing it that, he loses it there. And this one is real bad, it just gets run right through. So there, I end on a bad note with him because that is kind of what his year was last year. If you look at a lot of his games, there were some ugly reps. But I do think it was an anomaly to an extent. I do think the injuries, really did affect him. The Tampa Bay offense just sucked. I think the left guard who was playing next to was like some 7th round pick. I want to say, I could be wrong, but it was not someone very good. And I do think playing next to Joe Thuney may help a little bit. And just playing in the Chiefs offense may help him a little bit. He has the athleticism to work at left tackle. And then you see some of the run blocking too. So, fellas, any takes? Caleb, I know you were about to hop on. I kind of stole the film review from you. What do you think about him?
When he loses, it's bad. Like that's kind of always been a consistent theme of his career, though, is when it's like kind of known around some like O-line circles. When Donovan Smith loses plays, he loses in like the worst possible fashion you can. And that, that's not bad if you're losing 2 or 3 plays a game. But this season, when he's hurt and it starts to accumulate, you start seeing these lowlights of kind of what he does game to game. Against some pretty formidable pass rushers, I'll say, also against some guys who aren't total bums. But it kind of, you start thinking, you're like, man, I don't know if this guy's going to end up being a starter. If he's healthy, he's probably a starting caliber player. He doesn't do anything great. He doesn't do anything outstanding, but he is consistent. He is good enough in pass pro. And like we mentioned for the Chiefs, last season with Brown and Wiley, people are saying, they're so bad we can't even play them. People are looking for in-season replacements, and now we're at the point where we don't think we can at least maybe slide Donovan Smith into either left or right and give him a chance. I'm like, he's going to be able to slide in there somewhere. Obviously, there's a lot of competition. I'm kind of working on a little piece about that right now. There's got a lot of things that are going to have to get sorted out, but at the bare minimum, he is going to bring in at least a quality depth veteran. He'll be at least a swing tackle. But I do think, early on with his NFL experience, the fact that he has started 124 games, I think that gives him a leg up on Lucas Niang and Wanya Morris headed into camp.
Yeah, Nate, and I think one theme of this is just that, like, it's my mind is in a pretzel trying to think like exactly what this means, short term, long term. What are your kind of thoughts about just the signing in general, maybe?
Well, so I guess to talk about Smith the player real quick, he was a lot better in 2020 and 2021. I will say pass protecting for Tom Brady is like the easiest thing ever because he basically just stands still. So you just have to kind of just protect your inside shoulder. So where he kind of like sits on, is he that version of a player as he was last year? We'll see. Donovan Smith's going to start. Like, Donovan Smith probably took less money to come with the Chiefs, would be my guess. I could be wrong. I'm just judging off the Chiefs cap situation. And why I believe that is he's going to be given a starting job for a team that could compete for the Super Bowl. That's really valuable going into next year. I don't think Donovan Smith came in here to compete for a left tackle job. He's going to get that job. And I guess what we've talked about this yesterday and into today. There's not a lot of downside here because I think Donovan Smith's just better than Lucas Niang and Darian Kinnard or whoever. Like, there's no question. He's a better player. I guess kind of the question is, and we won't know this until next offseason, are they just, if Juwan Taylor is very good at right tackle, which he will be, are they suddenly going to move him again?
Right.
Are you going to have to go into 2024 saying, well, we need a left tackle? Because like that to me is the only downside of this is that you feel so good about Juwan Taylor at right tackle. And that doesn't mean he's not a bad investment. But then you go into next year saying, okay, we have to invest more into tackle. And then other positions kind of get neglected a bit. I guess that's kind of the question with this. And that's why I felt like, before the signing, I was like, all right, Jawan's the left tackle, Wanya or whoever's the right tackle. That's the plan long term. And now I'm kind of like, is that the plan long term? It's just something I don't know.
No, I know. That's where my brain starts to get pretzeled up, man, because I really feel like, before the signing, I did feel like it was kind of clear, but you're right. I think with Juwan Taylor, if you play him at right tackle this year, does it make sense to move him next year? I think it's this year or not. In my opinion, I don't, I've always been of the opinion that, they want him to stay at right tackle. And it's obviously clear now. I think they're trying everything they can to keep him at right tackle while still having a competent left tackle. They just don't want to neglect that. And I do think he was a good backup plan. And we don't need to keep talking about it, but it is an important topic, because I was going to play devil's advocate to you in the group chat earlier today, Nate, a little bit, because you were saying like, hey, are we going to just keep investing at this position? If that is one position that you just do want to maybe keep trying to get right.
Absolutely.
Right.
Yeah.
And like, there's other positions where you may just say, hey, shoot, like, we've done this a couple of times. We just got to stick with this guy. I do kind of like that the Chiefs are continually actively like trying, they didn't settle for Orlando Brown Jr. when honestly, right. I just assumed they were going to, I really did. And so it is cool that they didn't. So I don't know, you can rebuttal that at all, because I do think I was, cause I get your point, but I'm glad this is a one position that they're not just going to kind of settle at.
Right. No, I think that's fair. I mean, it's certainly better to invest at left tackle than it is like tight end or whatever, right? Like,
right.
Eventually you just got to find good players at those spots. It would be pretty disappointing if we went into 2024 after just putting a lot of money into Juwan Taylor, after taking Wanya Morris at the top 100 pick, and still needing a tackle. Because, we had so much stability with Fisher and Schwartz, and we were lucky to have those two for as long as we did. But since that point, it hasn't been as stable at tackle. And if we're going into another year where we're like, well, need an offensive tackle, that, I know we got to move on, but that would be disappointing to me. But that might not be the case. We won't know until next year, unfortunately.
Well, let's keep talking offensive tackle. I know I was going to start with you, Nate, but Caleb, let's. There's no reason to go off the topic. Let's get into Wanya Morris, if you don't mind taking us through the Chiefs' third-round pick.
Let's do it. And real quick, I will say that investing in tackles, like putting money into them, is one thing. I think drafting guys is another thing, because Morris is a third-round pick, but Lucas Niang was a third-round pick in 2020 also. When you're drafting those tackles like in the late 90s, kind of that range, you really don't know what you're going to get. And I was actually stunned at the day of the draft. If you listen to our stream, I was very surprised that they took Wanya Morris there. I wasn't necessarily down on him in the draft process, but I had him as like a fifth-round player. That's kind of where I thought he would go. I had him probably a pick 150 player, somewhere in that range. But the Chiefs obviously saw something different. And what I think they went with, I think it's a combination of their familiarity with who he is. He's had a similar O-line coach to Creed Humphrey. He played with Trey Smith. When you're drafting in that range, you'd rather go with, maybe having an upper hand in knowing who a guy is and who does have quite a bit of physical upside, as opposed to, maybe going after a guy like a DeJuan Jones in that situation who you may not know a lot about, who may have done some things in the interview process to not do great, and who you may just have some general questions about his physical stature. That's one of the reasons I think they went with Morris here. Let's just take a look at the film. Let's get into and break it down. And I will say he is a very mobile player. He is pulling here. He's the tackle pulling on counter. He gets an awesome finish on this play. You see the mobility. I think he's going to be great in the Chiefs counter scheme. I think he could bring in the ability to run, some outside zone also. He's going to be good in the screen game. You see, he just lines that guy up. Nothing special about this play. It's just I'm running through a defensive back space, which he does. And he lines him up and puts a big hit on him. The back should have followed him out there. Great finish on the play. And, he's got those long arms. We'll talk about it now. He's got the 35-inch arms. And real quick, high IQ football player also. He makes a lot of these hot calls. He's helping his center out, eyeballing the DBs and all these wide guys to kind of maybe pick something up so he can see if he could pass the message down the line, if that can help out them or the quarterback any. Pointing him out, and he puts him with a ghost arm there. You see that? Run it back real quick. Just hits him with a little ghost arm. And what is a ghost arm? He's going to give him a feeler hand here. Same hand he's pointing out with. He's got it out. Then you see the edge. He's looking right at it. The edge is looking at the hand, and he's like, oh, I'm going to swat that down. Morris says, not so fast. He gets the guy to throw his move. The edge is throwing his move. Now Wanya locks in quick, locks in tight, and he's just going to walk him around the arc. He can't really do anything. Good pass protection play. We'll come back down here. Similar type of play, that he just beats this guy to the arc and jumps on top of him. This defensive end for Texas, he liked to win with a lot of speed. They try to do it again, throws his chop too early. Wanya sticks out those long arms, and he's getting ready to hit him with his inside hand on the shoulder, which he does, and he just works him up the arc and throws him down. That's all great. He does have inconsistencies. One of the big inconsistencies people talked about was how letting people, his lack of real pop and explosion in his hands and kind of his hand fighting. You can work around that, but he does have some issues with his lower body, specifically his first step out of things. And I think this is one of those examples, which, by the way, he does mess this play up. This isn't a great rep, but you see he's got to be down blocking on this play right here on number 98. And he doesn't really do a great job. He steps, but then he starts to turn without really making contact, and they're having a pull or come around. And he just makes contact, and 98 works his way into the play. Not a great rep. I do like this, though, because he comes in and smokes the guy for a big hit there at the end. So at least he is always playing hard, and he is playing physical. But we come back, and I will take a look at this play. And I'm trying to remember it. And this is just I got him pulling around here. Same play as earlier. I apologize. I think I accidentally went back when I meant to pause that. We'll jump out here to the front end.
Well, you're seeing definitely how he fits in the Chiefs offense. I would just say I feel like it's a great fit.
Yeah, long arm tackle. He likes to move around a lot. We'll come back down. This is a good play of him just finishing this rep. He just throws this guy bigger. But when he's not, can't just be bigger and stronger than everyone. See, he takes a bad step here, and 98 beats him all across his face. This is a real ugly rep. And this is where that consistency and focus, man, you got to have it on every single play, especially in the NFL. Because we take a look. You look at his inside toe. 98 is just on the outside of him to start this play. He should cut him off and win this play every time. He should be anticipating the inside move. He doesn't open up his hips and run. His hips and feet stay in the same place. He just kind of turns a little bit. And that, he's moving, but he's not going anywhere. So that's already giving the edge a chance to just blow through there and get past him. And his guy makes the tackle. You can't do stuff like that if you want to win. And then just in pass protection, one more here while I got a second. This guy is lined up tight on him. He should be thinking, be patient with the feet. Don't overset him. Try to get a good shot on. And they do take some of these sets, like more flat sets in Oklahoma. He does a good job initially, but he starts to drift to the outside, and he doesn't deliver a very strong punch. And that's when you talk about, longer arm guys. Sometimes they have trouble developing a lot of power. But with him and his long arms, he should be developing footwork. And he's not like he's a terrible athlete. He's a really good athlete. He has quick feet. It's just the consistency of being able to use them. See, right here, he should just if he doesn't overset the guy, he can just lock his arms out and keep him at bay the entire rep. But he doesn't get much contact. and he just delivers that. So there's a lot of good and a lot of bad. When they drafted him, I wasn't like, here's our starting right tackle for the next decade. I was more like, well, he's going to be a project. He's not even a project because I think he could come in and be valuable early on in a limited capacity. I just don't know if he's ready to be the guy out there yet. Could he be the guy long term? Yes, absolutely. He has every tool in the book. He's just really got to work at it.
Nate, I'll just let you take it away because I know you were a big Wanye guy at the beginning, and I think it is Wanye. I think they established that, right? I think it's Wanye.
Veach kind of said it like that when I was listening today. Yeah.
But anyway, go ahead.
I was definitely a little bit higher on him, but I kind of echo a lot of Caleb's points. There's so many flashes of him on film of looking good, and then there's like a lot of moments you're like, oh man, like this is like a guy that's supposed to go top 100. To me, the biggest problem with him, and this was just what I kind of saw, was like I definitely think like the hand placement and pass protection's off, like the punches off, like kind of you mentioned. Like there's times where he like lunges too much. There's times where he's like his hands are like hitting like the neck and the helmet of the guy. Like that's kind of the inconsistent part. I wrote when we kind of did the draft game initially, I thought he was going to be the starter at right tackle, but that doesn't necessarily mean I think he's a starting level tackle yet. It was more of kind of my lack of confidence in, Niang and Kennard. But I think it's a good thing that the Chiefs are sitting him for the year. I don't think that's like some, bad kind of sign for him long term. I think that, talking about an infrastructure, being in an offensive line with Jawan Taylor, Donovan Smith, Joe Thuney, Creed Humphrey, and Trey Smith, there's way worse ways to develop in the NFL. So that feels good. And I think that Wanya can be an average-ish right tackle in the NFL. And when you take that around the end of the top 100, I think that's a major win.
Yeah, and Andy Heck too. I mean, you gotta the coach there is just a lot of the things you guys pointed out are things that I feel like he could definitely get better at with a good OL coach. So, well, that's the offensive tackle talk. But we're gonna stay on the offensive side of the ball, okay, Nate, because I do know you're gonna talk about the polarizing receiver. I feel like this guy really was like the most polarizing pick of the Chiefs draft class. Take it away.
Yeah, I guess I'll tell kind of a quick story. When the Chiefs traded up, I was totally convinced it was Jalen Hyatt, the wide receiver from Tennessee, which I would have been fine with. I think at the end of the second, that would have been a perfectly fine pick. But when they announced it was Rashee Rice, I was pretty excited because Rashee Rice was my wide receiver 8. He was at the top of my round 3 wide receivers. All the other guys that have above him were drafted except A.T. Perry, who fell in the 6th round. I don't know why. That's just clearly the NFL didn't value him that highly. So like Rashee Rice would have been my top wide receiver available, but the consensus opinion on him was kind of lower. And I think that there's some truth to it, but I think there's things that people are kind of underestimating about him. But the first thing about Rashee is his contested catch ability and his body control. And the first couple clips I'm going to show kind of show that. His game against Maryland was absolutely insane. If you're a Chiefs fan, just look up Rashee Rice highlights versus Maryland, and you're going to be convinced he's like the best receiver in the NFL. Or he will be. But this kind of first clip, I think some of the issues people talk about like separation, and these 2 clips kind of represent it. I don't think his offense really allowed him to separate with the way they were kind of using him. So like on this play, this wide receiver is kind of running a dig over the middle of the field. Rice is just kind of going to be running this clear vertical. You can kind of tell he's not really running at like full speed or full pace. I don't think he's really expecting the ball here. He does get on top of this corner a little bit late, but you'll just kind of see this insane catch. Off the top of the screen is Deonte Banks, who went in the 1st round, and he's coming in flying in. Most receivers wouldn't be able to catch that ball. I do have the end zone angle of this. But like this is just like an insane catch, like falling backwards right into the cornerback's head. Like that is crazy. Body control, extension, to be able to kind of have those strong hands going into the ground. And kind of this next rep, like when Rashee Rice would face man coverage, they generally wouldn't let him like actually run a route. They would just generally be like, all right, you're going to go run a fade pattern and you're just going to go try and win. And it worked. Like it's hard for me to even criticize it, but he wasn't trying to necessarily get on top of DBs. He was trying to more just kind of box them out. And that's what he kind of does here. Like he's not trying to like fully speed get past this guy. You're going to kind of see that swim to get back inside and get good body positioning. Again, another great catch. I definitely think Rice has some separation issues, but I think they're being over exaggerated in the sense that like he's being compared to guys like Hakeem Butler, and he's a better athlete than that in my opinion. He's just more explosive, like on film. A couple other clips I have real quick. Rashee Rice is a great blocker. Like it shows up consistently on film. He's physically gets into it. He's just going to throw this defensive like back 15 yards downfield.
Nice.
That's something that just kind of shows up all the time. It's a niche thing, but that does matter in the NFL, wide receiver blocking. One thing that Brett Veach mentioned was he thought that he had really good spatial awareness and kind of yards after catch ability. And I tended to agree with him. And this kind of play kind of shows it. It's not just like, I'm going to run over you or I'm going to run past you. He makes cuts. He can stop, start. He has kind of a good feel of where the ball is and where defenders are and make a miss. Most guys that big don't generally have that ability, which is why like they struggle in the NFL because it's separation and yards after catch. At the very least, Rice has after catch ability. And one last clip here. If Rashee Rice is going to make an impact in year one, it will have to be in the slot. I wrote about this in my article. He struggles getting off the line of scrimmage. He struggles to beat press. That's just something he doesn't really do well right now. But he's actually like really good at like beating zone coverage. He has a good feel for like zone holes and where to find openings at. This last clip here, he's going to be running this dig over the middle of the field. He's going to read this like leverage from the slot, who's going to push kind of outside. So he's once the snap kind of goes, he's going to be reading this kind of outside. He's going to be able to stem inside. This linebacker does a pretty good job of taking away this dig window from him. He does kind of drift to try and give a window, but maybe you'd want to see him kind of extend more towards the middle. But he's also good on the scramble drill. And this quarterback's going to scramble. He's going to be able to kind of drift and kind of give his quarterback a window. That was something that kind of showed up on film. And yeah, I think, talk about Rice. He's going to need work. I don't think he's going to do a lot year one, which is what I mentioned in the article. But Rice has a lot of very good traits. And I know there's going to be a lot of concern about him compared to some of like the bigger body wide receivers that have come out in recent years. And while I'm not the biggest fan of those big body receivers, Rice is a better athlete. He does more things there. If he can just figure out, and it's a hard thing to figure out how to beat press at the line of scrimmage, I think that that's going to open up a lot of things in his game. I'm higher on Rice than most. I can understand why he doesn't work in the NFL. But in this wide receiver class in particular, where there is a lot of role players at the very best, I'm fine taking the swing. You have Patrick Mahomes and Andy Reid. Take swings on top-end talent and see if they can figure it out. And compared to guys like Hardman and even Sky Moore, I think Rice has just more natural talent than either of those guys.
I mean, a lot of the things you said are exactly what they're going to miss with Juju and maybe thought they were getting with Juju, right? I mean, I think there's a lot of things, that they maybe signed Juju thinking, hey, maybe we could extend him because of, the yak ability, the ability to still catch, contested, to an extent, be a good blocker, all that, and be obviously, a pretty good, zone beater, like you were mentioning with Rice. So I think this may, they've been looking for this kind of receiver. And it's kind of funny to me. He played like someone that didn't have the testing to me that he had. Mm-hmm. But when you think about it, it's like, okay, he has that testing and, you can unlock that to an extent. I do wish
he was injured last year too. That's something we should.
Yeah. The toe. Yes. The toe, right. Was it? Yeah. Toe.
Yep.
Right?
Turf toe.
Was the thing. Right. So yeah, I think the type of the receiver they drafted was exactly what I was wanting them to do. I just maybe didn't realize maybe it was Rice. And now, more and more you think about it, I think he fits, but yeah, I do think there's still a lot to know about him, learn about him, and see if he still will actually, contribute like Juju could. Juju obviously was at wide receiver 1 at certain points last year and really was a big factor. Caleb, what do you think about Rashee Rice?
Nate, I'm glad you brought up his yak ability because I think it got underlooked by a lot of people, just like looking for the highlight reel grabs. But really, he didn't get he got chances, but he didn't get like a ton of chances to operate underneath. Just really wasn't his game. You love seeing that stuff though, having the vision to not just run through guys, but he can make cuts. He does like the Travis Kelce little step back sometimes, like he can spin out of stuff. I'm excited about that aspect because if there's one, even if he is a rookie and he's struggling early on to create separation or to run his routes off the line, Andy Reid is going to find a way to get him the ball underneath. And really, I feel like he's got the frame. He could even turn into like a slant guy for Pat. He can run a lot of those underneath routes like Juju kind of ran. So I think it was a good selection. I was shocked at the time they took him just because I wasn't like expecting him in that range. But yeah, I think it might be time for us to get on to Ron's thing real quick though. You put it up there, not me.
I know. I did not mean to put that up. I did not mean to do the walk-off music, the get you off stage music on that. But if you got anything else to say, just please.
One more thing though, just turnovers and consistency catching the football. That's really the only things I think he has to work on that are like big killers, just consistency with that stuff. Those are little things though that you can just eliminate over time.
Right. And I will say too, Nate kind of alluded to it too, where like he was doing a lot of boxing out at the top of his routes and stuff. The more you think about it, it's like, yeah, that he probably knew, okay, I don't have a quarterback that's going to be able to chuck it, where I need to be creating separation, all the way down the field. Because you're right, he could create the separation initially, and that's what always kind of like, it was almost like he just didn't finish his routes very well. That's almost how I interpreted it, maybe, and maybe that was an incorrect or a misinterpretation in general. So interested and very excited to see his development. But we'll talk about the first round pick now. Felix Enrique-Uzama, the Kansas State defensive end. The one thing you think about him, or you kind of like about him at first, in my opinion, is his combination of build, balance, and flexibility around the edge. I just really like this rep. It's kind of just it's kind of a nothing rep to an extent, but just how much he brings his hips around, how much he emphasizes bringing his lower body around with him when he bends around an edge. I know this isn't a pass rush rep, but you're going to see it in his rush reps too. I just feel like a lot of times when you see speed rushers, because he's not necessarily a speed rusher, but he plays more off the edge, and can bend around, obviously. He's not the fastest guy off the ball, but he can win with kind of those levers kind of getting around. But a lot of times when you see those guys that have some of that flexibility, they're only bringing their upper body through the corner, right? Bringing that around the corner, but they're maybe not bringing their whole lower body through. And that's why you see this hold get called here, because he's bringing his entire body through. The offensive tackle has no other choice but to kind of sell out and grab him and kind of make sure he doesn't get all the way through, because he won. Felix won on that rep. I just feel like it's kind of rare to maybe see some of these guys, especially with his build, because I do think he has a pretty solid build that he's going to be able to work on, build on. That's one of the things I really like about the pick, was how high of a ceiling he has as a player, physically, and just obviously just to work on stuff. But here you're going to see him work. His favorite thing was the long arm back to the swim move inside, in terms of a counter move, to hitch, kind of just his outside rush. He does work it pretty well, just because he's so, like I said, balanced, right? He stays upright. He really does. You don't see him on the ground too much as a pass rusher. You'll see it maybe in the trenches, maybe because, obviously we've talked about it over and over. He plays a lot in the trenches at K-State, but he just stays upright. He's a guy that's going to, obviously, fight through gaps and just, always be, working his way towards the quarterback. Here he gets held, as he kind of, because he's just so smooth, honestly, from the outside move to the inside, like transitioning to that long arm to the inside rush. He's just very smooth with it. He's also just a crasher, a gap crasher, right? He can just hit, penetrate a gap very quickly off the snap, and blow stuff up. Here he walks Steve Avila pretty much all the way back to Max Duggan. Avila, obviously not the most powerful guard, but a very good guard in this draft class. But here's the thing: we alluded to it. I alluded to it. Him playing in the trenches a lot, as that 4-eye or kind of, right over the offensive tackle at K-State. I tried to only include clips here where he was actually playing from the edge, even though he's head up here, right here. But he did do a really good job of just keeping his eyes up and just being active. And I do think he does in one-on-ones a lot of times. He can stay balanced, stay upright. I feel like it's just, when he gets that second person maybe helping on the block, that's when you can see him easily go down, kind of look physically overwhelmed. But he does a really good job of staying upright against blocks, keeping his eyes up and just working his way to the ball as a run defender. I really feel like he has good reps. And then you're going to just see the athleticism here to change direction in the open field, redirect and go to the flat and actually get a hand on this tackle. He has the athleticism. He has, again, just the motor too. I just think he's active all the time throughout the snaps, throughout the reps. But again, the bend, the flexibility, the balance. But here you're going to see him get dug into, right? And I just wanted to show one negative clip. I should have probably included a few more that I had, but just again, he can, he is a lighter defensive end to an extent. He can definitely add on some muscle, some mass, and definitely be a little stouter at the point of attack. But again, I just really like what he can bring you as a pass rusher right away to an extent. As a run defender, again, to an extent. I think you're going to see the best of his years, though, in year 2, year 3, closer to that second contract. But right away, I just think he's going to be an active, a high motor pass rusher, kind of like Karlaftis was, honestly, last year. But again, he has more of that bend, that flexibility that maybe, he could be a little more productive snap to snap, rush to rush than maybe Karlaftis was last year. Nate, he was your guy, obviously. How are you feeling about him?
Yeah, well, I was higher in consensus than most. I had him edge 34. I guess people had him a little bit lower. No, I talked about FAU a few weeks ago. So if you want more thoughts, go there. Obviously, I was very happy with the pick. So, I really do believe in him. Just one thing I kind of tweeted about, I would project him in the Carlos Dunlap role, which is kind of like rotational defensive end on early downs, like a couple series a game, then on every third down. That's still 600 snaps. So that's still a valuable role. But yeah, I love the FAU pick. Edge 34 for me. So I was pretty high on him.
Yeah. Caleb had him at 5, like as a crazy person. 33 spots, way too high, Caleb. Right? Yeah, Homer. Caleb. Any FAU takes real quick, and then definitely go to your guy because I'm excited to talk about your guy too.
Could be the biggest steal of all time if he was, the 38th best edge in this class, and he ends up being a dog for the Chiefs. No, but I mean, in all seriousness, you feel really sure about him as a player. That was like the no-brainer. Don't be dumb. Don't overthink it pick. It's like he's athletic, he's strong, he's flexible. You will find something to do with him at the very minimum. Like Nate mentioned, he's going to be third down pass rush guy for a while. There was another guy I felt very comfortable about taking, though, and he was a guy that went several rounds later, 2 days later after they make the FAU pick. They go in and they continue to overhaul their defensive line, and they go in and draft a guy that Ron and I were clamoring for about in the 4th round because you started, I remember we said it after the 3rd round, like, oh man, the run on nose tackles is starting to go, and you see Broderick Martin and Siaki Ika go off the board real quick there at the end of the 3rd. You're like, oh, I don't know how much longer Keandre Coburn's going to go and be on the board. But this is who the Chiefs go out and get. Keandre Coburn, the 6th round pick. Nickname is Big Snacks. I love that. He is a load in there. And for being a 6th round pick, man, he's got a lot of things that are going to translate well to the NFL game. And let's just take a look at it, because you do think just by watching his film, you're like, this is a guy that can come in and give you a lot of snaps on 1st and 2nd down as the one technique early on. And he's right there. He kind of flashes out to a 3 tech at the last second. But then you see he's off the snap. He's a big guy, gets off the snap quickly. And now, he doesn't allow the center. He kind of sets the edge in a makeshift kind of way from the interior there. The back is trying to make his reads. And he just does an awesome job, cuts it off, gets penetration. And then he just puts his weight on the pile, making sure they don't go forward. Here he is 2-gap. And I really like this because you see just how easy he plays these gaps here. And watch, he just stands the guard up, and he's going to just do whatever he wants. He's going to read the play for however long he wants. And you see it right here. He's got him out there like that. And what he's basically doing now, he's got the guy off the line of scrimmage. He's not even giving up any movement. He's coming out and playing the B gap while keeping his eyes on the A gap. And you see this linebacker is going away because he's following the motion man. This should be a giant gain from the running back. Coburn shuts it down quickly, though, because he's ragdolling the guard in there. Just size and power. Here's an impressive play. Eating the double team, and you go, well, he didn't make the tackle on this play. Yes, but who does make the tackle on this play? You take a look at who does make the tackle. 41, the linebacker. He's supposed to be getting blocked right now by this offensive lineman sticking his hand out, and he actually goes in and makes the tackle. But I love this just because you see it. Even though Coburn does turn, and he does start to give up a little bit of not even movement. They're turning him because they can't move him. He's so stout on the line of scrimmage that they can only try to turn him to open the hole. And while that is creating a seam, this guard has to turn his shoulders to where he's no longer on an angle with the linebacker. The linebacker now has a perfect angle just to blast through and get the running back. So he's a double team magnet. He's just a beefy guy in there. Not a ton of upside in the NFL game as a pass rusher, I think. But every once in a while, you'll see just some plays like this where he's just going to, it's just, I'm bigger and stronger than you. He'll do that to a guy every now and then, like he does here. Goes in there, brings the quarterback down. But, a lot of the times he is going to just be that guy that when it's a 4th and short and you go, well, what are we going to do? You're going to put him over the center, much like he is here. And you see that line of scrimmage, it's right there at that line. You can see it very clearly. You'll see the line is not moving at all. It's still on that line. And as a matter of fact, this running back is trying to press into the line initially. He's going to have to cut. But when he cuts, he gets tripped up on the feet of his own offensive line because they got no movement on Coburn. And he actually falls down. This linebacker doesn't – if he doesn't fall down, he gets the first down, and this game is over when it is. Instead, he stands here late in the game, and he trips on his guy's feet because his guys could get no leverage versus Coburn. I think this was a great pick, and not just a great pick for a good player. You know, it's not just like, oh, it's a big steal. Great positional value. They did not overdraft him. You know, we all loved Keanu Benton, Siaki Ika, those guys, and I think those guys are going to go on to have productive NFL careers. But where the Chiefs got Ika versus where those guys got, you look and say maybe the Chiefs ended up getting a little bit better value for a similar player.
I did it again. My gosh, I'm just out here walking everyone off. No, hey, Caleb, you and I were distraught in that. You know, we saw Chamari Connor go off the board and BJ Thompson go off the board before Coburn did, but Veach knew what he was doing because I do think Coburn can come in right away. Honestly, have a very similar career projectile as Derek Nottie, who came in and played, was significant nose tackle snaps pretty much right away for that 2018 Chiefs team, and has kind of been their starter since. I think Coburn can kind of do a very similar thing. Nate, quick takes about Coburn before you get to the last guy of the day.
Yeah, just quick. Coburn, great pick. He's going to be a nose for the Chiefs for a while. They needed a nose so badly going into the draft. To leave with Coburn was important because they had missed on the top end guys. So, you know, snagging him on day 3, awesome pick. Couldn't ask more. We'll talk about BJ Thompson real quick. I wrote an article for him on Arrowhead Pride. So if you kind of want more in-depth thoughts, kind of go there. I'm not going to include much of his Stephen F. Austin clips. I only have one actually because he's playing at like 220 pounds, and there's just not a lot that can really translate from his Stephen F. Austin film. But the only clip I kind of have here is like, he is just wildly explosive, even for like a smaller level school. He honestly kind of looks like a track star, like coming out of his stance at times. I actually don't think Thompson has like incredible bend. I think he has good bend, not great bend, but he's just so fast that he can get on top of tackles. And I'll kind of show this rep real quick. Like, look at him just like when the snap starts, like he just fires off the ball and he just gets on top of this tackle so quickly. This tackle has barely opened his hips, and he's already kind of on that high side to be able to kind of flatten and turn the corner. He doesn't play with like a lot of like bend. Like you don't see a lot of like him dropping his shoulder, right? You don't see him run on like the side of his foot or whatever. But he just knows he is such a strider and he's so fast that he can just like crank around the corner real quick and kind of flatten around the corner. The two clips I'll kind of talk about here were from the Shrine Bowl, because to be honest with people, I don't think Thompson was a draftable prospect based off his Stephen F. Austin film. But what I saw at the Shrine Bowl was like, oh, I can see the path to this guy maybe finding a spot in the NFL. In college, as a run defender, he was a lot more of a penetrator because he's just too light to really set the edge. So Stephen F. Austin was like, you just got to get upfield, man. Like you got to try and get TFLs, kind of cause disruption. But at the Shrine Bowl, he added weight. He's around 240 in this clip compared to 210, 220 in college. And he was able to kind of use his length a little bit more, drop his pads a little bit more. His pads are still a little bit high here, but he was able to kind of use that length, that improved functional strength to be able to kind of set the edge a little bit more. He does commit the penalty here on the face mask, but compared to what I was seeing at Stephen F. Austin, this is like a much better run defense clip than anything he had. And kind of this last clip I have here, Thompson's bend through contact, which is like, it's an important thing. Like you have to be able to bend, but you also have to be able to like bend through like someone pushing you, right? Like a tackle's going to have hands on you. They're going to be trying to wash you up. And at Stephen F. Austin, he didn't have the functional strength to really win through contact. But at the Shrine Bowl, it was a little bit better. He was able to kind of deal with that and not let that disrupt his kind of rush path here. Again, he's going to get down in a 4-point, get out of his stance. Again, this tackle, horrible pass set. But this tackle is going to be able to kind of push him up the arc a little bit, or at least kind of attempt to push him up the arc. But it doesn't really let him kind of disrupt his path. He's still kind of winning the corner here right around like 7-8 yards, which is where you kind of want him to win. He shows a little bit more kind of like agility and bend to kind of win on the high side, kind of crank around. I thought overall at the Shrine Bowl, he showed better bend. He showed like he knew kind of how to take better angles to get on top of people. To talk about just Thompson real quick, he's going to take time. He's going to need a year or two to really, if he's going to develop anything, he needs probably 15, 20 more pounds to really hold up at an NFL strength level. But what I kind of said was Joshua Kendo wasn't really working out for the Chiefs. Lee Herring really didn't do a lot for the Chiefs. So resetting their developmental window with BJ Thompson makes sense. I admit I didn't love the pick at the time, but when the Shrine Bowl tape came around, I understand the idea of him developing to potentially be something. In the 6th round, it doesn't really matter anyways. It's a late day 3 pick. But I think there is something that are worth keeping him around for a couple of years to see if he can kind of develop.
Yeah, the Kando thing, it just makes a ton of sense. They're just resetting that position. And, you always should have someone like a high kind of ceiling, take a swing kind of guy in that kind of spot where, a lot of times Kando was inactive last year. I imagine BJ Thompson will be inactive quite a bit this year. Because there's obviously a few people that have to be, and it just makes sense to kind of have those kind of guys at the bottom of the roster as those guys. So, yeah, I definitely like the swing. Caleb, I'll let you give your final thoughts on if you got any BJ Thompson takes, and we'll send the people on their way.
His combination of length and speed off the snap is just so rare. We had like this group of like these developmental edges we liked, and we talked about some of them: Isaiah Land, Jose Ramirez, and BJ Thompson. I think the reason the Chiefs would have favored BJ Thompson is because even with his ability, he does have some of those characteristics that Spags would like in a defensive end, whether it be kind of like that big, imposing body, the longer arms,
Right.
And he's got kind of that frame where he can, put on a little more weight. And if it doesn't work out for him as being like a developmental edge rusher, he could maybe eventually work his way into having the size to be like a rotational defensive end in some regard. So I think there were elements of both of those things when they were trying to decide kind of what they wanted to do there. But it's a good pick. It's not going to be a make or break pick or anything. So it's nice to add some more athleticism and just try to take a shot on a guy.
Yeah, no, I think you're right there. I think the length made a difference. Isaiah Land, Jose Ramirez, just kind of stouter, smaller frames, right? And just, if you're going to take a swing on one guy with some pass rush juice, would make sense to maybe do some length. Kando was a very long player, right? That guy, I was excited about him, honestly. I thought he could turn into something. All right, fellas. Well, I really appreciate you guys joining us tonight. I guess I'm talking to the listeners right now. We will see if we're going to continue to do this on a weekly basis. May not be every week, but we'll obviously continue to keep bringing you guys content on the site. Make sure you're checking out all of our stuff. We got film reviews on all the rookies so far. I guess I shouldn't say all of them, but all of them will be reviewed. By a certain point soon. We'll look at the EDFAs next week. That'll be fun. There's some intriguing ones that we didn't touch on today. But just keep up on the site. Keep up with us on Twitter. Thanks for checking us out tonight, and we will catch you next time.